At first glance, talk of digital ID, central bank digital currencies, or 15-minute cities can sound far-fetched. Honestly, I used to hope it was too. But when you dig into official government documents and the policy papers of organizations like the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and the Bank of International Settlements, it becomes clear. This isn't just speculation. These are active policies already being rolled out here in the UK and around the world. And the real question is this: do we understand what they actually mean for our daily lives, for our families, and for the freedoms our children will inherit? Because this isn't about convenience, it's about control. And if we don't see it now, we may not get the chance to push back later. Now, some people say, but we already have ID. We carry passports, driving licenses, and most of us have smartphones that we know track us. And that's true, but here's the difference. Those forms of ID are separate and they're optional. You use your passport for travel, your driving license to drive, and your bank card when you choose to buy something. You don't need your passport to buy groceries or your driving license to see your doctor. You can live most of your life without using them. A digital ID is totally different. It's a master key, one credential that unlocks or locks everything: employment, banking, healthcare, benefits, travel, and even access to the internet. And unlike the documents we have now, you won't get to pick and choose when to use it. If it becomes mandatory, you'll need it if you want to remain in societal system and to keep a roof over your head and food in your belly. And here's the frightening part. If that access is restricted or withdrawn, you don't just lose one document, you lose everything at once. So let's think about the real-world impacts. Imagine going to the supermarket and your digital wallet is frozen because of a compliance issue. You can't buy food for your children. Or you try to pay your rent, but your account is blocked. You risk losing your home. Or you're told you've already exceeded your carbon allowance, so you can't book a flight to visit your family abroad. Even your diet could be controlled. With programmable money, you might only be allowed to buy red meat once or twice a year. This isn't science fiction. Banks and supermarkets are already piloting carbon tracking systems based on the so-called climate crisis. At first, these tools are always optional, but history shows us that optional quickly becomes mandatory. And what about healthcare? Your access could be conditional on whatever's logged in your digital ID: vaccination status, medical compliance, or lifestyle behaviors. That's not freedom, that's dependency. And here's where it gets even more concerning: facial recognition technology. This is already being trialled in UK high streets, stadiums, and airports. Once your digital ID is tied to your face, every camera becomes a checkpoint. Walking into a shop could log your purchases. Attending a protest could flag your profile. Entering a train station could either charge your account automatically or deny you travel if you're deemed non-compliant. And let's be clear, facial recognition isn't perfect. Studies show it frequently misidentifies women and ethnic minorities. But in a digital ID system, a force match could mean you're barred from accessing services, locked out of your accounts, or even wrongfully detained. So this isn't just an idea you show when asked, it's a permanent surveillance layer that follows you everywhere, all of the time. But it doesn't stop there. Digital ID and facial recognition are being tied into the Internet of Things and so-called 15-minute city policies. The Internet of Things means all your smart devices, from fridges to thermostats to cars, smart meters, and wearable trackers, are constantly connected and sharing data. So what happens when this is linked to your digital ID? Well, smart meters could ration your energy if you go over your quota. Smart electric cars could stop you leaving your approved zone. Smart fridges could track or even restrict your food choices. And then there are 15-minute cities. On paper, they sound great, everything within walking distance. But tied to a digital ID, CBDC, and the Internet of Things, they risk becoming open-air prisons. Geofencing could restrict you to your zone. Cameras could fine you automatically for leaving. Travel outside your area might require pre-approval through your digital ID. In other words, no walls, but no freedom either. And this isn't just a British policy, this is global. The UN has made digital ID part of its Sustainable Development Goals. The World Economic Forum calls it the linchpin of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The Bank of International Settlements insists that all central bank digital currencies must be tied to digital ID. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank are rolling out digital ID and CBDCs in developing countries under the banner of financial inclusion. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is designing global standards to make sure national IDs all work together. The Gates Foundation and Gavi are funding digital ID programs across Africa and Asia. And here in the UK, the Tony Blair Institute is one of the biggest lobbyists for digital ID. Different justifications, same outcome. A standardized, centralized control system overseen by unelected global organizations. Now, here's the really shocking part. Over 3 million people in the UK signed a petition against digital ID, but the Prime Minister has said he's pressing ahead regardless. And none of this was openly debated during the last election. There was no public mandate for digital ID. The government first sold it as a way to stop illegal immigration, but the public quickly saw through that as it made no sense. This isn't about immigration, it's about control. So the question is, if politicians are ignoring millions of citizens, who are they really working for? Now, you might well think, well, this is only for work checks, so it doesn't affect me. But that's exactly how mission creep works. Anti-terror laws were only for terrorism, now they're used in everyday policing. Pandemic laws were temporary, but many are still enforced today. Carbon trackers are currently voluntary, but could soon be linked to banking and ID. And digital ID is no different. Today it's about immigration checks, tomorrow it's for renting a home, booking travel, or even accessing the internet. Now you may trust leaders of today, but what about the ones that come next? Once the system exists, it will always be expanded. That is how power works. Another argument you'll hear is, well, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. But that depends on who decides what's right or what's wrong. Right now in the UK, people are given long prison sentences for social media posts, while violent criminals and paedophiles are often released early. So is it really about whether you've done something wrong or whether the people in power choose to target you? The issue isn't hiding. The issue is freedom. And once every detail of your life is tied to one system, you no longer control that freedom. And this isn't just about us, it's about the future. If we comply, our children and grandchildren may never know what freedom even meant. They won't remember a time when you could buy food, travel, or speak freely without digital permission. They'll grow up in a conditional access society, one where survival depends not on choice or responsibility, but on compliance with rules set by people they never voted for. And once that system is in place, it won't be undone. It will be passed down, expanded, tightened, generation after generation. So what can we do? The answer is simple but powerful. Do not comply. Do not enroll. Do not legitimize the system by participating. Start now. Refuse to use biometric logins like fingerprints or facial recognition on your devices. These are already part of the growing infrastructure. The less we feed it, the less power it has. Even two-factor authentication, which sounds like it's there just to keep you safe, is really a way of normalizing multiple layers of centralized ID checks. It's preparing us to accept digital ID as the ultimate key. History shows that systems like this only succeed when people go along with them. But when enough people refuse, they fail. Digital ID may be sold as convenience, but convenience is the bait. Dependency is the trap. If combined with CBDCs, universal basic income, behavioral tracking, facial recognition, and the Internet of Things, digital ID becomes the infrastructure of a digital cage, just like in China. A world where every purchase, movement, and decision is monitored, approved, or denied. This isn't capitalism. This isn't democracy. It looks much more like enforced communism mixed with stakeholder capitalism, a world where elites and unelected organizations control society from the top down, and ordinary people live under constant surveillance. We are at a critical juncture for humanity. The question is, will we silently comply, or will we refuse and protect the freedoms that generations before us fought to secure? I know which side I'm standing on, because once freedom is lost, it may never come back. And before I go, I want to share something personal with you that really brought all of this home for me. On the very day I was preparing to release this video, I woke up to find that both my Facebook and Instagram accounts had been permanently shut down. When I looked into it, it turned out that someone had hacked my accounts, posted inappropriate images, and the platform's AI immediately flagged and suspended me. Now, here's the frightening part. There was no way to explain this to a human being. The whole process was controlled by algorithms. Every appeal just looped me back into the same automated system. And the only option they gave me to get my account back, guess what? Yes, submit my biometric data, which of course I refused. So overnight, I lost two of the biggest platforms I use to run my businesses and reached thousands of people through my podcast, not because of something I did, but because there was no human accountability. Now think about what that means in a world of mandatory digital ID. If this can happen with social media, what happens when the same system controls your bank account, your healthcare, your ability to travel? And here's the really chilling thought. What if a hacker posted illegal content from your account? In today's system, you might lose access to your social media, but in a digital ID system, you could be accused, punished, and locked out of life itself instantly, with no chance to prove your innocence because the algorithm has already decided. That's not just inconvenient, that's terrifying. And it's exactly why we can't afford to sleepwalk into this system. If my experience shows anything, it's this. When systems fail, it's people who pay the price. And once your entire life is tied to a single centralized ID, there may be no coming back.